I'm Robin Furman, and continuing our stories of hauntings and the supernatural, I'd like to talk to you today about the most curious case of the haunting of Bradley Woods near Grimsby. Not very long ago, a motorcyclist of my acquaintance told me a curious story which involves the Grey Lady of Bradley Woods, which I understand quite a number of people have heard about. He was on his motorbike, proceeding in a proper and appropriate manner towards Grimsby from the direction of Waltham and Barnum Beck. It was getting sort of dusk, really. Not dark, but dark enough for him just to have turned his lights on, when coming round the Z bend that's on that bit of road, just as you approach Bradley Woods from that direction. Road was clear, came round the corner at a fairly reasonable speed, and then, to his horror, an old lady walked straight out of the gates that are near the woods, without stopping, without pausing to look at him, right in front of him, slammed the brakes on his motorbike, but he was so close to her that he knew that he had to stand them on really hard or he was going to hit her. He slammed them on so violently that he came off his bike. The bike swizzled around, shot into a ditch, and he finished up upside down in the ditch. The motorbike, with its wheels still going round and round, was somewhere near the gates of the wood. And it was only because of the fact that he had not been going very fast that he probably didn't do himself a serious injury, or even he might have even killed himself if he'd been going fast. But as I say, fortunately he wasn't, though he was bruised and battered. He managed to haul himself out of the ditch, and he got up and he was going to give her a piece of his mind. He looked round furiously for the woman, to find there was nobody there. And there never has been anybody there. Other people have reported seeing the Grey Lady of Bradley Woods, but so far it remains a mystery. Maybe it will always be a mystery. But that is not the only haunting that is associated with Bradley Woods. There's far more to it than that. Well, the other part of the haunting of Bradley Woods is, if possible, even stranger than the curious affair of the motorcyclist who came off after attempting to avoid the old lady that walked out in front of him. I received a phone call from a couple who had the most extraordinary shock as they were walking through Bradley Woods. They said that they were walking through the woods with their small child of about 5, when suddenly they noticed a woman walk out onto the road that goes through the woods, a little path, I should say, that goes through the woods. But they realized suddenly she seemed to be moving with a gliding movement rather than sort of walking in the way you'd expect. She was all dressed in black, her face was very white, and her hair was long and black and shiny somehow. So she gave them a very eerie feeling. These were an average young couple, young married couple, working couple. They're not into spooky phenomena of any sort. They're not particularly oversensitive or suggestible, but they said that something about her really spooked them out. Anyway, she was ahead of them somewhat, and they followed on behind. Now, local people will know the woods as a path that goes through Bradley Woods, and it bears left or right at the end. It comes to the end of a sort of a T-junction, and you can then go round the outskirts of the woods and back to the main road. They followed the woman to the left. As they went along behind her, they saw another couple coming towards them. The woman passed this other couple and then turned left into the woods again. When the couple that had rung me up reached the couple that were coming towards them, they said, "Did you notice that woman ahead of us?" And this other couple said, "We certainly did. We felt most odd. What on earth was it?" So "We don't know. I've never seen it so strange. She seemed to glide along," and this other couple agreed with them. This was late afternoon, by the way. They went into the woods after the woman. They just managed to keep sight of her in the thicker part of the wood where there isn't a proper path, but it's beaten down well enough to the vegetation to sort of walk along. They follow to the opening of the road they'd originally taken into the woods, where, when you reach the gates of Bradley Woods, there's a little, I suppose, a gamekeeper's sort of cottage near the gates. The woman in black headed towards the cottage, went behind a tree on the way to the path of the cottage, followed by the couple that had rung me up. They were so curious. But when they walked further along the path, the woman had gone. She didn't appear from behind the tree. They didn't see her disappear. She merely walked behind the tree, but never emerged from it. They were so utterly baffled by this, they actually took the unusual step of going to the house at the entrance to the wood, and they knocked on the door, and a woman answered the door and said, "Excuse me, but have you seen a woman in black?" They described how the woman in black looked, their long hair, and anyway, the occupants of the cottage, and then the man came to the door, the woman's wife said, "We don't know what you're talking about, nobody's staying here, and we have not seen such a woman at all." Well, briefly, the affair rested there. At this particular time, I was speaking on a little regular series on Humberside Radio, and about strange mystical matters, and I happened to mention this haunting on the radio. Well, lo and behold, the day after I'd mentioned it on the radio, I received a telephone call from a man who told me that he knew who the ghost of the wood probably was. Well, as you can imagine, I was very interested in that and went to see this man, a very elderly gentleman, who told me that in fact, as a young boy, he'd walked on the decks of the Titanic, would you believe? His father was one of the builders of the Titanic, and he, as a very, very young boy, had actually walked on it. And by the time of the Second World War, he was growing up a little bit. He was back in Grimsby, playing in the woods, when he was approached by a soldier. At the time of the First World War, apparently there was an army camp in the wood. One of these soldiers now approached the gentleman who'd rung me up. He was playing in a wood with a friend. The soldier said, "We have something we want you to take to a local doctor. If we give you a few bob, will you take it in this wheelbarrow?" They said. He and his friend said, "Yes, we will." They had something in covered by a thick rug, and they said, "You must not move this rug under any circumstances." Odd though it was, they swore they wouldn't move the rug. They took the wheelbarrow, wheeled it with a rather heavy load to a local doctor. They felt very spooked when they heard a sound coming from beneath the rug, which covered something in this wheelbarrow. What on earth was it? They got to the doctor, and it turned out that inside there was a woman. It was now the body of a woman who'd been murdered in the woods. This was the person that my informant told me was the body of the ghost that had been seen. Apparently, in the First World War, there was an army camp in the woods, and a man had a sort of a hut there where he made tea and sandwiches and sold them to the soldiers. But he took advantage of a girl who had some disabilities, some mental disabilities. She was somewhat backward, but a pretty girl. He took advantage of this girl. She became pregnant, and one day she went to him in the wood and told him about this. They had a terrible row, during the course of which he hit the girl, and she received injuries from this attack, from which she eventually died. The soldiers, however, came upon the scene, and they knew about it. The summary justice, according to my informant, was that they killed a man and he's buried somewhere in the woods. The girl that they asked my informant to take to the doctor had already sadly died by the time they arrived there. And extraordinary though this tale is, this gentleman is still a local man, and he swears to me that every word is as true as any word can be, and he was personally involved with this curious case. He feels, rightly or wrongly, that the ghost is that of the woman, perhaps looking for the unborn child, or wandering about this place with these dreadfully emotive events took place. It does seem that strong emotions somehow imprint themselves on various places, woods, lakes, mountains even, sometimes hold memories. Maybe that's what happened to Brantley Woods. Well, thanks for watching with us again. I hope you found it interesting, stories about Brantley Woods and the old lady that suddenly appeared. And spooky though these stories are, please don't let it put you off walking your dogs in Brantley Wood and having a pleasant afternoon. It's very unlikely that anybody ever sees anything anyway. And if you do see anything paranormal, well, you know who to call. Look forward to seeing you on the next part of our series again. Bye for now.